Dirk studied German and English literature and also politics. Yes.
Yes.
And has been one of the most active and unusual authors for many years. His performances are sound events between poetry, sound poetry, and spoken word. We will see that here today at the second part of our event. This first part of the event will be dedicated to the presentation of his new book. I must say that this is the first presentation of his new book. And the title of the book is
Plötzlicher Nebel. It's like sudden fog in English, yeah.
And yes, this is the first presentation here in Slovenia now.
Yeah, it just arrived last week. So it took a long time because it was scheduled for the book fair Frankfurt in October, but it didn't come because of paper issues and printing issues, and so I'm really happy it's now finally there.
And I think that this is a very special moment because I know myself as a poet that when the new book is here, and how do you feel now? Are you happy, proud?
Yes, I feel very happy because it took such a long time to finish it and to do it, and in between I thought it's never coming out, you know, it's not happening. And so I'm really happy that it happened here, and I'm especially happy for the title Plötzlicher Nebel, sudden fog, because when I got the book here, it was the first day of real fog here in Ljubljana. So the fog was really coming down. I just got the book in my hands, which is called Sudden Fog. So that was really strange and funny.
Okay, yes, it's normal for this time in Ljubljana like this.
Yeah, but I didn't write the book with coming to Ljubljana in mind,
yes.
you know.
Yeah, but in Frankfurt it's also foggy like here?
Not that much, sometimes, but yeah.
Okay, can you tell us something about your new book? Who is the publisher of this book?
The publisher is a small publishing house called Axel-Dielmann-Verlag in Frankfurt, but they're quite active. They do a lot of poetry, a lot of books, and they actually will publish a couple of Slovenian poetry next year. And yeah, I hope it's working out. So yeah, they're really dedicated to poetry very much.
Okay, and it's difficult to publish a book of poetry in Germany.
Yes, yeah. Well, there are a lot of small publishers still, even though it's getting less and less. But it's becoming more and more difficult to publish things because everything is more expensive, and the big publishing houses, they don't publish poetry at all, really, or very seldom. So you really need a small publishing press for that. People are really dedicated to poetry.
So people buy poetry books?
Not really.
No? No.
Unless, at a reading maybe they would buy poetry. There are some poetry lovers, of course, who buy, but it's in Germany it's really a niche, a very small niche. Even though I think maybe like with new developments of spoken word and these kind of things, people are getting more interested in poetry again, in some kind of poetry.
And what kind of poetry they're interested in?
Well, there's a young generation that's interested in stage poetry and performance poetry, and poetry slams and these kind of things, and they start also reading books with that. And so it's a new poetry experience. And on the other hand, you have the more academic poetry, of course, which is always a niche, because like most people will not understand what the poets are talking about.
Yes.
So it's really a niche. But there is a young generation who is more into these performative kind of poetry, and who is interested in poetry and music events and these kind of things.
And the poetry in your book was created during the Corona,
Yes.
as you told me, and this as a part of a special project. Can you tell something about that project?
Yeah, being a stage poet, mostly the Corona crisis hit me quite hard because like everything I was doing was going on stage and hosting and curating shows and performing my own poetry, and of course nothing was possible anymore. And luckily there were some government programs to support artists in that time, and I think part of that government programs were also special stipends for artists, and this was one of those for writing, for doing a new project. You could apply for that, and that's what I did for the Hessische Kulturstiftung, it was called, and so they supported me for a little while for writing this book.
You told me that this perception of the space and the body is one of the topics in your new book, and how does this narrowing of space during the corona manifest itself in your poems? Can you tell something about that?
Well, the first thing is that I really started writing something I would call real poetry again, because before I was doing really poetry that was meant to be spoken, spoken on stage specifically, and so now there was no stage anymore. I had to do some different kind of poetry, I think, and it was really inspired by you can't go very far, so you have to see what's around you, or what's close to you, your own apartment maybe, and if you look out of the window, what's happening there, and how far can you walk during one day maybe. Mm-hmm. So there's like one poem that tries to figure out, if I start at my own flat on the door and I keep going, how far can I go? Because there is a mountain in the back of Frankfurt, and can you go on top? And a lot of people, of course, wanted to go on top of this mountain during the corona pandemic, but then there was too many, and when you came to the top, it was suddenly closed. You couldn't go there. And so that was one of the experiences I was writing about.
It was closed?
Because there were too many people.
Okay.
Yeah, and people, of course, were driving up there by car, and and it was a traffic jam, and there were like thousands of people up there. And you think you just go through the forest on a mountain, and it's it's traffic jam,
Yeah. Can you read us something? Maybe you said that these poems are different. Today you will present these different poems, like you said, these are like more for reading, and that one are more for performing.
Yeah, there are still some of the poems in the book are from my performance program, but not that many. Mostly, most of them are not really performance poems. Mm-hmm. So I will just read them like regular reading. Yeah, the first one is Einreiseformalitäten. Von Anfang an haben wir ihm die Grenzen aufgezeigt. Die Lautstärke, die nicht überschritten werden darf, die Speisen, die zu meiden sind, die maximale Stärke des Händedrucks, Unaussprechliches und Unvermeidliches, die Grenzen von Sauberkeit und Anstand wurden selbstverständlich vorausgesetzt. Jedes Näherkommen braucht Einreiseformalitäten.
Vstopne formalnosti. Od samega začetka smo jim nakazovali meje, jakost zvoka, ki se ne sme prekoračiti, hrano, ki se ji je treba izogibati, največjo dovoljeno jačino stiska roke, tisto neizrekljivo in neizbežno. Seveda smo predvidevali tudi meje čistoče in dostojnosti. Vsakršno približevanje terja vstopne formalnosti.
Füße. Wie die Füße jucken, so weit weg da unten, wie die Füße zucken, ich soll sie nicht vergessen. Die Füße jucken, so fern vom Kopf, in den Randgebieten meines Lebens. Die Füße zucken vor Aufregung, sie glauben wirklich an die Freiheit. Sie wollen gehen, auch wenn der Kopf fest auf der Schulter sitzt. Sie wollen zu den Bäumen, die selbst nicht gehen können.
Stopala. Kako me stopala srbijo, tako daleč tam spodaj, kako mi stopala drhtijo, ne bom pozabil nanje. Stopala srbijo, tako daleč od glave, na obrobjih mojega življenja. Stopala drhtijo od znemirjenja, resnično verjamejo v svobodo. Ima jih, da bi hodila, če tudi je glava posajena trdo na ramena. Ima jih, da bi hodila tja proti drevesom, ki sama ne morejo hoditi.
Von null. Oh, no. It's the Wander, I think.
Aha. This is for the performance.
No.
No. Okay.
It's a Wander. Wo denn wandern? Wohin denn wandern? Wohin denn jetzt noch wandern mit diesen Händen zwischen Pop-Up-Ständen und Stand-Up-Menschen? Wohin denn wandern auf Rolltreppen durch hell erleuchtete Höhlen und frisch gefegte Höhen voller Angebote, Relax-Zonen und exotischer Zierpflanzen für das Homeoffice-Gefühl? Wieso denn wundern, woher die Schrunden an diesen Wänden, woher die Wunden an diesen Kunden, die frisch gekündigt immer noch warten? Auf neue Karten, auf wahre Wunder, auf neue Wege, auf klare Belege, auf große Ziele, auf Glücksgefühle. Wo denn wandern? Wohin denn wandern? Wieso noch wandern, wenn das Passwort fehlt, wenn der Wind sich dreht und vor der Tür steht ein neues Paket?
Na pot. Pot le naj nas vodi pot, kam torej na pot, kam nas torej zdaj naj še vodi pot s temi rokami, med pop-up stojnicami in stand-up ljudstvom, kam torej na pot po tekočih stopnicah, skozi razsvetljene votline in sveže pometene višine, prepolne akcij in ponudb, sprostitvenih sob in eksotičnih okrasnih rastlin, za tisti pravi občutek dela od doma. Zakaj vsa ta čut, odkot le razpoke v teh zidovih, odkot le te rane, zadane kupcem, ki sveže na cesti še vedno čakajo, resničnih prelesti na nov kaži pot, na novo pot, na jasne dokaze, velike cilje in občutek sreče. Kot le naj nas vodi pot, kam torej na pot, zakaj vsa ta čut, če ni gesla in če veter obrne svojo sled in nas pred vrati pričaka nov paket.
And the last one, von null. And this really relates to our obsessions with numbers during the Corona crisis, the numbers going up and down, and so this is going back to zero. Von null. Auf 0, auf 0, etwas, auf 0, zugegeben, auf 0, möglicherweise 1 oder beinahe 1,0 oder 1,1 oder 1 mit 0 und noch einer 0 am Ende oder nur ein Ton zwischen Halbschlaf und halbwach, ein immer wiederkehrender rhythmischer Ton, ein wiederkehrender Hall, ein Komma in der Stille, ein Dilemma und noch ein letztes Komma. Zugleich ein Summen, kaum hörbar, ein Summen erhitzter Nullen, ein halber Liter Kaffee steht bereit.
Z nič, na nič celih nekaj, na nič celih res da, na nič celih more biti, ena ali skoraj 1,0 ali 1,1 ali 1 z ničlo in še eno ničlo, za njo ali pa samo nek ton med pol snom in pol budnostjo, periodičen, ritmičen ton, ponavljajoči se odmev, ulomek v tišini in dilema, še zadnji ulomek, ob enem pa brnenje komaj slišno, brnenje razgretih ničel, pol litra kave je nared. I have another few questions here, and maybe then we can also ask somebody from the audience if somebody would like to ask something. Yes, your poems are very minimalistic, and I'm interested in how poems are created. It's the rhythm first. You first hear the rhythm, the sound, and then the content. They are also very rhythmical, and or otherwise. How this process goes?
Well, I think there's different ways to come to a poem. It's like this. The sound is there first, and the rhythm is there first. But sometimes it's just like small observations or small pieces of languages I see somewhere. It's like the language of advertising I use very often, and so it's different inspirations how to come to a poem.
Mm-hmm.
And then I improvise a lot with words and juggle around and see what's happening. And of course, speaking them is a big part of it.
You speak them loud.
Yes.
Mm-hmm, of course. Mm-hmm. And this sound comes from the body, and how you experience it. Like, I mean, this connection between the body and poetry, or sound, poetry or sound. Your body is involved, of course. Do you dance also, or do you move? Because when I read your poems, I was a little bit like, oh, I wanted to move.
Yeah, it's possible. And sometimes children do it when I'm performing. They're dancing around, and because grown-ups don't dare to do it. And you can laugh, you can dance, whatever you want. And the body aspect is important. I think. Language and body is really closely connected, especially through a voice. The voice is a central element, and it's a physical element, really. But also our gestures, our mimic, and everything, and how we move, and all this is part of the performance. And I don't really jump around on stage. That's not what I'm doing, really. I have a project with a dancer, so she's dancing, but I'm not doing much movement. But for me, it's really the voice that's the central experience. But the voice, you can feel it anywhere in the body. And I had this experience when I had some problems with my back and some back pain, and working with the voice really heals it, So it's quite strong. And also, it really creates moods and physical experiences also in the audience sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. It's really